The moment my daughter-in-law called me a pathetic failure in front of 12 dinner guests, I decided to tell her the truth about the house she'd been living in for 3 years. Rebecca's crystal champagne flute caught the light as she stood commanding attention, with that practiced smile I'd grown to despise. Her voice carried across the dining room like poisoned honey. I'd like to propose a toast to Margaret, my sweet mother-in-law, who just shared that she's stepping back from work due to her health. Such a shame when people can't keep up anymore, isn't it? How does it feel to be so utterly irrelevant at your age? The room froze. My son David's business partners shifted in their seats. Their wives suddenly found their lobster bisque fascinating. Not one person defended the 63-year-old widow who'd been feeding them a 5-course meal in what they thought was her son's home. I placed my napkin beside my plate with surgical precision. The antique grandfather clock in the hallway ticked through the silence. I could feel my heart beating steady as a metronome, the same rhythm that had carried me through 31 years with the Treasury Department. "Well, Rebecca," I said, my voice carrying the calm before a hurricane, "I imagine it feels similar to discovering you'll be moving out of the home you've been living in without paying a dime. Because tomorrow morning you and David have exactly 30 days to find your own place." Her champagne flute stopped halfway to her lips. The color drained from her spray-tanned face faster than water down a drain. "What the hell are you talking about?" "I'm talking about the deed to this house, darling. The one with my name on it. Only my name." I stood slowly smoothing the silk of my emerald dress. "See, when you couldn't qualify for a mortgage 3 years ago because of David's medical school debt I didn't co-sign, I bought this entire property. Cash. $470,000 from your father-in-law's life insurance." David's fork clattered against his plate. "Mom, that's not possible." "Oh, but it is, sweetheart. Every month when you write that check you think goes to Wells Fargo, it comes to me. You've been my tenants for 3 years. I smiled at Rebecca, matching her earlier sweetness. Funny how property records are public information. Anyone can look them up. The dinner guests were transfixed. I recognized the barely hidden satisfaction on several faces. Rebecca had a gift for making enemies. "You can't just throw us out." Rebecca's voice cracked her composure, shattering like thin ice. "Actually, I can. It's called property law, honey. Google it." I collected my clutch. "Thank you all for coming. David, will speak in the morning when you've had time to digest this along with your dinner. Rebecca Zillow has lovely rental listings this time of year. Though with your part-time Pilates instructor income, you might want to adjust your expectations." I walked out of my own dining room, leaving behind a woman who'd just learned that disrespecting the wrong person could cost you everything. Behind me, I heard one of David's colleagues whisper to his wife, "Did that just happen?" "Yes, it did, and I was just getting started." The call came at 6:45 the next morning. I was already in my sunroom watching cardinals fight over the bird feeder coffee steaming beside yesterday's crossword puzzle. "Mom, what the hell was that last night?" David's voice was hoarse, exhausted. I could picture him in my kitchen, pacing the Italian marble floors Rebecca had picked out with my money. "Watch your tone, David, and you know exactly what happened. Your wife humiliated me in front of strangers, so I reminded her of reality. You can't kick us out. This is our home." "No, sweetheart. It's my investment property that I've been letting you live in." I took a deliberate sip of my Colombian dark roast. "Remember 3 years ago, that charming colonial on Oak Avenue you loved? The bank rejected your application because of your $180,000 in student loans." Silence stretched between us like a taut wire. "Remember how I said I'd handle it? How you were so grateful?" I continued. "What you didn't know is that I bought this entire property outright. $470,000 from the policy your father left me. Every payment you make goes into my account. I have 3 years of deposit slips to prove it. But why didn't you tell us?" There was something broken in his voice. Not anger anymore, but genuine confusion. My son, for all his weaknesses, wasn't cruel like his wife. He was just blind. "Because I wanted you to feel independent. Your father and I always believed in helping our children stand tall, not making them feel small." I paused, letting him absorb this. But there's a difference between standing tall and stepping on others, David. Your wife crossed that line. Rebecca says you're being petty. Rebecca says many things. Most are worth about as much as her Pilates certifications from that online course. I let the sarcasm drip. She's your wife, David, and I'm your mother. But this isn't about choosing sides. It's about basic human decency. The line went quiet. Outside, a cardinal had won the feeder war, its red feathers brilliant in the morning sun. What am I supposed to do? You're supposed to act like the grown man you claim to be. Get your own mortgage. Build your own life. Stop letting your wife treat people like servants in their own homes. I softened slightly. David, I love you. Always have, always will. But I won't be disrespected by someone who's contributed nothing but attitude to this family. And if we can't find a place, then you'll figure it out. You're 34 years old with a medical degree. Time to use it. Rebecca appeared at my door at 1:30 that afternoon. She wore designer yoga pants and carried a bouquet from the grocery store, chrysanthemums already wilting. The apology performance. I'd been expecting it. Margaret, we need to talk. She pushed past me into the foyer, her sneakers squeaking on the hardwood I'd had refinished last year. By all means, make yourself at home in my house. She placed the flowers on the console table and turned to face me, arranging her features into what she probably thought looked like remorse. I want to apologize for last night. I was inappropriate. You were cruel. I've been stressed. My studio isn't generating the income I expected, and with the economy, your studio that's been launching for 2 years. I raised an eyebrow. The one with no actual paying clients. Her composure cracked slightly. Building a wellness brand takes time. I'm sure it does. Tell me, how much have you and David invested in this venture? That's not really... Humor me. She shifted her weight. Maybe 20,000 equipment certifications, marketing insurance. 20,000. I moved toward the kitchen, forcing her to follow. On a business with no revenue while living rent-free in a $500,000 home. I have clients, really, because your Instagram shows you teaching private sessions in some very expensive neighborhoods. Clients who pay cash, I assume, ansiyo white samabakai. The color drained from her face. I worked for the Treasury Department for 31 years, Rebecca. Fraud Investigation Division. I know unreported income when I see it. I turned on the kettle, my movements deliberately calm. How much cash ballpark? I don't know what you mean. You charge $70 an hour for private sessions. You teach 8 to 10 clients weekly. That's almost $30,000 a year in unreported income. I smiled pleasantly. Your social media clients tag you Rebecca. They post about their amazing private instructor. They even mention your rates. She sank into one of my kitchen chairs. What do you want? I want you to understand that I'm not some old woman you can push around. I'm not your ATM or your doormat. I poured hot water over my Earl Grey. And if you ever speak to me like you did last night again, I won't just evict you. I'll forward your client list and payment records to the IRS with documentation. You wouldn't. Try me. Her hands were shaking now. She stood abruptly, knocking the chair back. David won't let you do this. David doesn't have a choice. 29 days, Rebecca. I suggest you start packing. After she left, I sat in my late husband's chair and felt something I hadn't experienced in years. Power. Not the cruel kind that Rebecca wielded, but the quiet strength that comes from finally standing up for yourself. My phone buzzed with a text from Helen next door. Saw Rebecca storm out. You okay? I typed back, never better. Want to come for tea? I have a story that'll curl your hair. Because this was just Act 1. And I had a feeling Rebecca was about to discover that when you mess with a federal investigator's widow, you better come prepared for war. David showed up at my door that evening without Rebecca. His face carried the weight of a man who'd spent the day questioning everything he thought he knew. He collapsed into his father's old leather recliner, looking older than his 34 years. Rebecca told me about your conversation. Did she mention her cash business? He looked up sharply. She said you're threatening her over a few private clients. A few clients generating $70 an hour, 8 to 10 sessions a week. I kept my voice gentle. No need to twist the knife when it was already lodged deep. That's nearly $30,000 a year in unreported income, David. $70 an hour. His voice cracked. She told me she was barely breaking even, said the business was hemorrhaging money. The business she reports to the IRS is failing. The one she actually runs is thriving. I studied my son's face in the lamplight. When did you last see her bank statements? We keep separate accounts. She said it was better for her business credit. Of course they did. The picture was becoming clearer and uglier. David, sit down, really sit. We need to discuss some things. For the next hour, I walked him through the reality of his marriage. The hidden income, the tax evasion, the lies stacked upon, lies like a house of cards, waiting for the slightest breeze. I'm an idiot, he said finally. You're trusting. There's a difference. I chose my words carefully. But David, this isn't just about money. It's about fundamental dishonesty. Your wife has been deceiving you about her income for over a year. What should I do? That's not for me to decide. You're a grown man. I stood up. But whatever you decide, you have 28 days to find a new place. That doesn't change. And if Rebecca and I work things out, I looked at him. Really looked. He was still hoping for a fairy tale ending, still believing love could conquer deception. Then you work them out in your own house with your own mortgage, using your own money, and hers, all of it, properly reported. I kissed his forehead like I used to when scraped knees were the worst of his problems. 28 days, sweetheart. I mean it. 3 days later, Rebecca made her second mistake. She brought reinforcements. I was pruning my roses when a white Mercedes pulled into my driveway. Rebecca stepped out, followed by an older woman who moved like she owned the world. The family resemblance was unmistakable. Margaret, this is my mother, Victoria Ashford. Rebecca announced it like she was introducing royalty. Victoria Ashford was everything Rebecca aspired to be. Impeccable, expensive, and radiating the kind of entitlement that came from generations of money. She looked at my ranch house like it was a quaint little cottage. Mrs. Hayes, I believe there's been a misunderstanding. Her voice had the crisp authority of someone who'd never heard the word no. Rebecca has explained the situation, and frankly, your behavior is unacceptable. I set down my pruning shears, slowly pulling off my gardening gloves, finger by finger. And what situation would that be, Mrs. Ashford? This eviction nonsense. They've been living here for 3 years. They have rights. They have the rights of month-to-month tenants whose lease I'm terminating. Victoria's smile could have cut glass. Actually, they have the rights of family members who've been investing in this property. Rebecca has been maintaining, improving, creating value. Ah, so that was their angle. Sweat equity. Claim partial ownership through improvements. Interesting theory. I brushed dirt from my hands. Tell me, what investments has Rebecca made? She's overseen renovations, managed maintenance, coordinated improvements. With whose money? The question hung between us like smoke. I don't see how that's relevant. Every renovation, every improvement, every single nail hammered into these walls was paid for with my money, Mrs. Ashford. Rebecca hasn't contributed 1 cent to this property. She's provided services, management, oversight. The same services any tenant provides, hardly grounds for ownership. I smiled sweetly. Besides, I'm curious about Rebecca's business records. Do you help with her taxes, Mrs. Ashford? Do you include all that cash income from her private clients? Rebecca went white. Victoria looked confused. What cash income? Oh, Rebecca hasn't mentioned her thriving off-the-books business, $2,000 a month in unreported income. I tisked softly. The IRS would find that fascinating. Mother and daughter locked eyes. A moment of silent communication, or perhaps accusation. This conversation is over, Victoria said stiffly. I agree. 25 days, Rebecca, don't forget. They left in a cloud of Mercedes exhaust and wounded pride. But something in Victoria's expression as she looked at her daughter told me Rebecca would be facing another interrogation that evening, this time from someone she couldn't manipulate quite so easily. Helen knocked on my door the next morning with coffee and a manila folder. Her expression was grim. Margaret, you need to see this. We sat at my kitchen table as she spread out printed pages. marriage certificates, property records, business filings. My cousin works at the courthouse, Helen began. I asked her to run some searches on Rebecca. Margaret, your daughter-in-law, is already married. The words didn't compute. What do you mean? She married a man named Christopher Stone 8 months ago in Las Vegas, while still married to David. Bigamy. My daughter-in-law wasn't just a liar and tax cheat. She was committing a federal crime. Does David know? God, no, but Margaret, there's more. Helen pulled out more documents. Christopher Stone owns a chain of medical spas. He's been transferring assets to Rebecca. Properties, business shares, investment accounts. The full picture slammed into focus. Rebecca wasn't just cheating. She was running a calculated scheme to drain assets from 2 men simultaneously. My son supporting her with his doctor's salary and free housing, and Christopher Stone transferring wealth to his new wife. She's been planning this, I said aloud. The separate accounts, the cash business, everything. She's building a nest egg from both of them. Christopher Stone is worth about $4 million, Helen added. His divorce was finalized 6 months ago. He left his wife Patricia for Rebecca. Patricia Stone. Another woman whose life Rebecca had destroyed. 24 days, I said quietly. Are you going to tell David? I'm going to tell everyone. But I had to be smart about it. This wasn't just about family drama anymore. This was about federal crimes fraud and a woman who'd turned destroying families into a business model. That afternoon, I did something I hadn't done in years. I called my old colleague from Treasury, Marcus Cole, who'd moved to the FBI's Financial Crimes Division. Maggie Hayes. His voice boomed through the phone. Tell me you're calling because you miss my charming personality. I'm calling because I have a bigamist committing financial fraud in my house. Well, that's significantly more interesting. Tell me everything. I laid out Rebecca's scheme. The bigamy, the asset transfers, the tax evasion, the systematic destruction of multiple families. Send me everything you have, Marcus said, his voice shifting from friendly to professional. This sounds like part of something we've been tracking. Romance fraud schemes targeting wealthy families. There are others. More than you'd think. These aren't crimes of passion, Maggie. They're organized, planned, systematic. Your daughter-in-law might be part of a larger network. A network? Rebecca wasn't just a criminal, she was a professional. That evening, I sat in my sunroom watching the sunset paint the sky crimson. David would be devastated, but devastation was survivable. Living a lie wasn't. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. You need to stop digging or things will get unpleasant. I smiled and typed back, things are already unpleasant. 23 days. Then I forwarded the threat to Marcus with a note. Looks like we struck a nerve. Because if Rebecca thought she could intimidate a woman who'd spent 3 decades taking down financial criminals, she was about to learn otherwise. The hard way. The next morning brought an unexpected visitor. A woman in her 50s, elegant but worn like expensive furniture that had seen too much use. Mrs. Hayes, I'm Patricia Stone, Christopher's ex-wife. I invited her in, noting the dark circles under her eyes, the slight tremor in her hands. I know about Rebecca, she said without preamble. I've been investigating her for months. Would you like some coffee? I'd like justice. We sat across from each other, 2 women united by a common enemy. She targeted Christopher deliberately. Patricia began. Researched him, engineered their meeting at a medical conference, presented herself as a successful wellness entrepreneur looking for investment. How long before she destroyed your marriage? 6 months from first meeting to him filing for divorce. She was pregnant by month 3. I nearly dropped my cup. Pregnant, she lost the baby, or said she did. Oh, I'm not sure anything about Rebecca is real anymore. Patricia's laugh was bitter, but it was enough to convince Christopher to leave me transfer assets to protect his new family and marry her immediately after our divorce. David doesn't know about any of this. Christopher doesn't know about David either. We sat in silence, absorbing the magnitude of Rebecca's deception. What do you want to do? I asked. I want to destroy her the way she destroyed me. Legally, of course. I have an FBI contact, Financial Crimes Division. Patricia smiled for the first time since arriving. I have something better. 3 other women she's done this to. 3 others. Rebecca had been running this scheme for years. "We call ourselves the First Wives Club," Patricia said. "We've been gathering evidence, comparing notes, building a case. Your information about David is the missing piece. It proves pattern and practice. 22 days until she's out of my house. With any luck, she'll be in federal custody before then." After Patricia left, I called David. "Come over tonight, alone. There's something you need to know." His voice was tired. "More bad news about Rebecca. The worst news, and the best, depending on how you look at it. Because sometimes the worst news that your entire marriage is a lie is also the best news that you're not crazy, not failing, not inadequate. You're just the victim of a professional criminal. And victims can become survivors with the right help." The revelation came wrapped in a misdirected text message, the kind of mistake that destroys empires built on lies. I was reviewing Patricia Stone's evidence when my phone buzzed. Rebecca's name appeared on the screen. "Can't wait for tonight. David's at the hospital until midnight. Margaret will be in bed by 9. Bring that champagne you promised. Love you, Chris. Christopher." She'd meant to text Christopher Stone while living in my house with my son. I screenshot the message immediately, then typed back, "Wrong recipient, Rebecca. You might want to be more careful." The response came in seconds. A single word, "shit." Then immediately after, "Margaret, I can explain." "Come over now," I replied. "You have 5 minutes." She burst through my door 3 minutes later, face-flushed yoga mat still under her arm from whatever fake class she'd been pretending to teach. "It's not what you think." "It's exactly what I think. You're texting your bigamous husband while my son works a 12-hour shift to support you." Her face crumpled, the mask finally slipping. "You don't understand. This isn't what I planned." "No, then explain to me how you accidentally married 2 men. Explain how you accidentally transferred Christopher Stone's assets into your name. Explain how you accidentally researched my family's finances before targeting my son." She went white. "How do you know about that Patricia Stone? Remember her? The woman whose life you destroyed? We've become friends, along with Susan Morrison, Jennifer Chen, and Maria Rodriguez. Each name hit her like a physical blow. Her other victims, the other families she'd destroyed. They can't prove anything. They can prove everything. Financial records, asset transfers, marriage certificates, evidence of premeditation." I stood up, towering over her despite being 6 inches shorter. "The FBI has been building a case for months. You just gave them the final piece." "The FBI," her voice cracked. "Financial Crimes Division, wire fraud, mail fraud, bigamy, tax evasion. You're looking at 20 years, Rebecca." She sank into my couch, all pretense abandoned. For the first time since I'd met her, she looked genuinely afraid. "I need to leave now, tonight. Running won't help. They're already watching you." As if on cue, my doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw 2 people in dark suits, FBI badges visible. "That would be them now," I said, opening the door. "Mrs. Hayes, I'm Special Agent Sarah Curtis. This is Agent Michael Romano. We have a warrant for Rebecca Ashford's arrest." Rebecca tried to run. She made it 3 steps before Agent Romano caught her arm. "Rebecca Ashford, you're under arrest for wire fraud, mail fraud, bigamy, and conspiracy to commit financial fraud." As they cuffed her, she looked at me with pure hatred. "You destroyed everything." "No, dear, you did that yourself. I just held up a mirror." David arrived as they were putting Rebecca in the FBI sedan. He stood in our driveway, watching his wife disappear into federal custody, his face a map of emotions I couldn't begin to read. "How long have you known?" he asked when the cars pulled away. "About the bigamy 3 days. About the rest, I've been putting pieces together for weeks." We went inside and I poured us both whiskey, the good stuff his father had saved for special occasions. This seemed to qualify. "Tell me everything." So I did. The investigation, the other victims, the calculated nature of Rebecca's crimes. How she'd researched our family, planned their meeting, orchestrated every moment of their relationship. Our entire marriage was a Everything about Rebecca was a con. He was quiet for a long moment, staring into his glass. "You know what the strangest part is? I'm relieved. For months, I thought I was going crazy. Nothing about our finances made sense. Her stories didn't add up. But every time I questioned anything, she made me feel like I was being paranoid. Gaslighting, it's what abusers do. Was I abused? Financially, emotionally, psychologically, yes. You were systematically abused by a professional criminal. David laughed, but there was no humor in it. A professional criminal. My wife is a professional criminal. Your soon-to-be ex-wife. The marriage isn't even legal, is it? If she was already married to Christopher. No, legally you were never married at all. He absorbed this, then actually smiled. So I don't need a divorce, just an annulment, or maybe nothing at all. Silver lining. Mom, I'm sorry. For not seeing it, for letting her treat you that way, for being so blind. You weren't blind, sweetheart. You were in love, and she was very good at what she did. The trial made national news. Black widow bigamist targeted wealthy families across 3 states. Rebecca looked smaller in her orange jumpsuit, her designer facade stripped away. Patricia Stone and I sat together in the gallery along with the other victims. We'd become friends through shared trauma, calling ourselves the Recovery Club instead of the First Wives Club. The prosecutor, a sharp woman named Amanda Chen, laid out the case methodically. 7 victims over 3 years, 4 simultaneous marriages, over $3 million in stolen assets. The defendant operated a sophisticated romance fraud scheme, targeting wealthy widows and their adult children. She would research families, extensively identify vulnerabilities, then systematically infiltrate their lives through calculated romantic relationships. The evidence was overwhelming. Financial records showed Rebecca had been planning these crimes since college, where she'd studied psychology specifically to better manipulate victims. Her mother, Victoria Ashford, attended every day of the trial. She sat rigid in designer suits, watching her daughter's empire of lies collapse. On the day Rebecca was sentenced to 15 years in federal prison, Victoria approached me. I didn't know, she said quietly. I swear I didn't know what she was. I believe you. How did we raise a monster? I don't think you raised one. I think one was born into your family and you did your best with what you had. She nodded, tears finally breaking through her composure. Take care of David. He's a good man. I know. Christopher Stone received 5 years for his role in the asset transfers. He'd been more victim than accomplice, but he'd still committed crimes in Rebecca's name. David moved into a modest apartment downtown, starting fresh, with his own name on the lease. He began therapy, joined a support group for fraud victims, slowly rebuilt his life. I want to pay you back, he said one evening over dinner. All the rent money. Keep it. Consider it a graduation gift. You've graduated from victim to survivor. What about the house? I'm selling it. Too many memories. I'm buying a condo closer to the city, something smaller just for me. Good memories too, though. Dad loved that house. Your father would have loved any house where his family was happy, and we weren't happy there, not really. Not for the last 3 years. David nodded. Where will you go? Patricia Stone and I are looking at places in the same building. Can you imagine we're thinking of starting a non-profit for romance fraud victims? The woman whose husband Rebecca stole, the woman who helped me save my son. 3 months after the trial, I got a letter from federal prison. Rebecca's handwriting still pretentiously perfect. Margaret, I hope you're satisfied. You've destroyed my life, separated me from everyone I love, and ruined any chance I had at happiness. I hope you can live with yourself. I wrote back a single line. I sleep perfectly well in my own bed, in my own home, living my own life. Helen and I were having tea when the moving truck arrived to pack up the house. Any regrets? She asked. Only one. I wish I'd stood up to her sooner. You stood up when it mattered. 21 days. That's all it took to dismantle 3 years of lies. 21 days to save your son. To save myself too. I'd forgotten who I was, Helen. Forgotten I was more than just a widow, more than just David's mother. I was Margaret Hayes, who spent 31 years catching criminals. And you caught one more. The last one, the one that mattered most. As the movers loaded the last box, I stood in the empty house one final time. Rebecca had called me pathetic, irrelevant, a failure. But I was the one still standing, still free, still surrounded by people who actually loved me. David pulled up as I was locking the door for the last time. Need help with anything? Just saying goodbye. To the house or to everything that happened here. Both. We stood together in the driveway looking at the place that had been a home, then a battlefield, then a crime scene. "You know what Rebecca never understood," David said suddenly. "What's that?" "She thought the house was the prize. The money, the status, the appearance of success. She never understood that you were the real treasure, a mother who would do anything to protect her family. Even destroy your marriage, especially that. You saved me from a lifetime of lies. You saved yourself. I just turned on the lights." We left together, driving separate cars towards separate futures, but finally free from the woman who'd tried to destroy us both. Freedom, it turned out, was worth more than any house. The investigation that destroyed Rebecca's carefully built house of cards had actually begun 5 weeks earlier, initiated by someone I'd never expected to meet. Detective Rachel Morrison from the county sheriff's office called me on a Thursday afternoon with news that changed everything. "Mrs. Hayes, we've been investigating Rebecca Ashford for 6 months. We need your help." Turns out Patricia Stone hadn't been idle after her divorce. She'd hired private investigators, forensic accountants, even a former FBI profiler to understand how Rebecca had destroyed her marriage so efficiently. "We have evidence of at least 7 victims across 3 states, Detective Morrison explained when we met at a small cafe downtown. "Your family makes 8. 8 families. Rebecca had turned destroying lives into an art form. She follows a pattern." The detective continued sliding a folder across the table. "She researches wealthy widows or divorcees with adult children, singles out the vulnerable ones, the lonely sons, the men still grieving or recovering from their own failed relationships." I opened the folder. Photos of Rebecca with different men dating back 5 years. My David was just the latest in a long line. "She studied this," I said, recognizing the psychology textbooks in one photo. "She literally went to school to learn how to do this. Majored in psychology, minored in accounting. Wrote her senior thesis on vulnerability patterns in grief processing." Detective Morrison's expression was grim. "She turned academic research into a criminal enterprise." "How much has she stolen?" "Between all victims, about $4.7 million, that we can trace. $4.7 million, and my son had been working double shifts to buy her grocery store flowers. We need inside information," the detective said. "Someone who can document her current activities, her hidden assets, her communication patterns." "I'll do it." "It could be dangerous if she suspects." I laughed. Actually laughed. "Detective, I spent 31 years investigating financial criminals for the Treasury. Rebecca Ashford is amateur hour compared to the cartels I helped take down. That's how I became a CI, a confidential informant in the case against my own daughter-in-law. For 3 weeks, I documented everything. Every transaction, every text David showed me, every social media post. I installed security cameras that happened to capture Rebecca sneaking Christopher Stone into my house. I recorded conversations where she admitted to cash transactions. The morning of Rebecca's arrest, I got a call from someone unexpected. "Is this Margaret Hayes?" The voice was young, nervous. "Yes." "My name is Ashley Chen. Rebecca Ashford is my sister." My hand tightened on the phone. Rebecca had never mentioned a sister. "Half-sister, actually," Ashley continued. "Different fathers. I need to tell you something about Rebecca, about what she really is." We met at a park, Ashley looking nothing like Rebecca. Where Rebecca was all artificial polish, Ashley was genuine, tired, worn down by years of something I couldn't yet identify. "Rebecca's been doing this since high school," Ashley began. "She started with teachers convincing them to change her grades, then college professors getting them to write recommendations for scholarships she hadn't earned. She destroyed my mother's second marriage by sleeping with her husband, my stepfather. Your own family." Family was just practice for Rebecca. She used to tell me that emotions were weaknesses to exploit, that love was just leverage. Ashley's hand shook as she lifted her coffee. She kept journals documenting her manipulations like a scientist recording experiments. "Where are these journals?" "Hidden in a storage unit in Newark. Unit 347 at Secure Store on Madison." Ashley handed me a key. "I made a copy years ago, thinking maybe someday someone would stop her." "Why didn't you—" "Who'd believe me she's my sister?" Everyone always said I was jealous of her success, her beauty, her perfect life. Ashley laughed bitterly. If only they knew her success was stolen. Her beauty was surgical, and her perfect life was built on destroyed families. The storage unit was a goldmine of evidence. Journals dating back 15 years documenting every manipulation, every con, every destroyed life. Rebecca had written about my family extensively. One entry from 6 months before she met David. Margaret Hayes' widow, Treasury Department investigator. Net worth approximately $1.2 million, including life insurance and property. Son David, medical resident, struggling with student loans. Lonely working, constantly minimal social life. Approach through hospital charity event, vulnerable to attention from attractive woman, showing interest in his work. She'd planned it all. Every smile, every touch, every moment David thought was spontaneous had been choreographed months in advance. Another entry after moving into my house, Margaret more formidable than expected. Treasury background makes her naturally suspicious. Must escalate charm offensive play. Devoted wife, wait her out. Old people always die eventually. Old people always die eventually. She'd been waiting for me to die. I photographed every page, then called Detective Morrison. We have enough to bury her, I said. Multiple lifetimes worth. The arrest happened 2 days later. But what the public saw was just the tip of the iceberg. The full scope of Rebecca's crimes went deeper than anyone imagined. During the raid on our house, the FBI found a second set of books for her yoga business, showing she'd been laundering money for a larger criminal organization. The cash payments weren't just tax evasion, they were part of a money laundering scheme involving multiple fake businesses across state lines. Christopher Stone, when confronted with evidence of his bigamous wife's crimes, broke down completely. He'd thought he was rescuing a struggling entrepreneur. Instead, he'd married a career criminal who'd already destroyed his finances and was planning to disappear once she'd drained him dry. She had plane tickets, he told me when we met during the trial, to the Cayman Islands, one way, leaving next month. Just her. I was never part of her endgame. Neither was David. We were all just stepping stones to Rebecca's real goal, complete financial independence through systematic destruction of everyone who loved her. The trial was a media sensation. The Black Widow of Connecticut, they called her, though she'd operated in 7 states. Rebecca tried to play victim, claiming mental illness abuse any excuse her lawyers could manufacture. But the journals destroyed any defense. Her own words documenting years of calculated cruelty, planning each manipulation with scientific precision. The day of sentencing, Rebecca's mother, Victoria, stood to speak. "I failed as a mother," she said to the court. "I saw the signs but refused to believe them. When Ashley tried to warn me, I called her jealous. When Rebecca's stepfather left, I blamed him, not her. I enabled a monster because I couldn't accept that my beautiful daughter was capable of such ugliness." Victoria looked directly at Rebecca. "I love you, but I can't forgive you. You destroyed innocent people for money, for sport, for the sheer pleasure of proving you could. That's not mental illness. That's evil." Rebecca was sentenced to 25 years in federal prison. No possibility of parole for 15. As they led her away, she looked at me one last time. No hatred now, just a cold assessment, like she was memorizing my face for future reference. "She'll try again." Ashley warned me after the trial. "Even from prison, it's who she is. Let her try, I'll be ready." But Rebecca didn't try again. 3 months into her sentence, she was attacked by another inmate who'd lost her family to a similar romance scam. Rebecca survived but spent 6 months in the hospital wing. I received one last letter from her written in a shaky hand. "You win." 2 words. The only honest words she'd ever communicated to me. David flourished without Rebecca's toxic presence. He started dating a fellow doctor, someone genuine who loved him, for who he was not, what she could steal from him. They married 2 years later in a small ceremony in my new garden. "No background check on this one," he joked during the reception. "Already done, she's clean." "Mom, what you think I'd make the same mistake twice." Patricia Stone and I did start that nonprofit. Broken Hearts Whole Wallets, helping romance fraud victims recover financially and emotionally. We've helped over 300 families in 5 years. Christopher Stone rebuilt his business sadder but wiser. He speaks at our events sometimes, warning other successful men about the sophisticated predators hunting in their social circles. They don't look like criminals, he always says. They look like everything you've ever wanted. Ashley Chen became our first employee using her sister's journals to develop profiles of romance fraudsters. She's saved dozens of potential victims by teaching them the warning signs. Rebecca taught me how predators think, she told me once. Now I use that knowledge to stop them. Helen and I still have tea every week now in my new condo with its view of the harbor. Any regrets? She asked on the 5th anniversary of Rebecca's arrest. None. I did what I had to do. You destroyed her life. No, I revealed her life. There's a difference. My phone buzzed with a text from David. Dinner Sunday, Sarah's making her famous lasagna. I smiled and typed back, wouldn't miss it, because that's what victory looks like. Not the dramatic courthouse scenes or the newspaper headlines, but Sunday dinners with your son who's finally happy, a daughter-in-law who genuinely laughs at your jokes, a granddaughter on the way who'll grow up in a home built on truth, not lies. Rebecca took 3 years of our lives, but we took back everything that mattered, our dignity, our family, our future, and that's worth more than all the money she tried to steal. The last time I drove past the old house, a young family was playing in the yard. New owners, new memories, new life growing where poison once festered. I didn't stop. That chapter was closed. But sometimes, late at night, I think about all the other Rebeccas out there. All the families who don't have a suspicious former Treasury investigator watching over them. All the Davids who won't be saved in time. That's why I keep working with the nonprofit, why I tell this story to anyone who'll listen. Because the Rebecca Ashfords of the world count on our silence, our embarrassment, our refusal to believe that someone we love could be fooling us completely. Don't let them. Trust your instincts, verify the stories, check the facts. And remember, when someone shows you who they really are, believe them the first time. It'll save you a lot of heartache. And maybe, just maybe it'll save your family too.